Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming to see your city council. Muchas gracias por venir a hablar a nosotros. The first thing we do every time is acknowledge that before we were here, there were people here before us. Let us remember that today we are stewards of land that has been home to indigenous people for thousands of years. Before the recent arrival of the European heritage culture, we honor this land's ancestors as we go about our business today. Please turn off your cell phones and let's salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we have 28 folks who have asked to speak to us. If I give 3 minutes, that will be 80 minutes. I'd like to do a little bit less than that. So if everyone could keep their comments to 2 minutes, please. Many of the folks are speaking on the same topic as someone else, so hopefully some of the message will be batched. We're going to start with Stefan Lunding, followed by Leslie Saunders. And the order of operation is that we don't generally discuss the topic after receiving the public comment. We will figure out how to fit it onto the agenda today or on a subsequent day. Stefan, go ahead and touch the UFO to make it turn green, and then you'll be on. Great. And if somebody could keep a 2-minute timer for me, that would be a big help. Thank you. Go ahead, Stefan.
That cuts quite a bit out of here. Anyway, okay. The city and ODOT agreed that Oak Street's going to become Hood River's Oak Street. ODOT has these plans to redo all the curb cuts, understand that they are no longer ADA compliant. What I did find out, and I only found this out in the middle of June because people had the wrong address, it was from Epic Solutions, starting the process of eminent domain to take the landscaping from the Butler Bank, which then brought me into focus on every intersection in downtown Hood River. It's to be changed with ODOT standard planting and landscape on every corner. These planters, Abigail's not quite sure who's going to maintain those. Speaking to Arthur Babbitts, he's surprised that this hasn't come through landmarks. Start talking to the ODOT historian for the historic Highway 30. He has no knowledge of all these changes downtown. I think it's time for the city to take a step back, send this to landmarks, give the downtown the review it needs. On a personal level, I don't think that ODOT can do better with the landscaping at the Butler Bank than I have done. I think it'd be sickening to see all of that torn out. The bench, my rockery, the sign, my polymer basalt, and the 40-foot Alaskan cedar are to be come out and paved over with the sidewalk right up to the building. So ODOT can put 2 little planters out in the corner, which is going to be handy because they decided to take the trash can out. So now our tourists and people will have a place to put their trash. Who's going to take the trash out of those bins? We don't know yet. So there are many questions, but I think it's responsibility, the city of Hood River, to pull this back in and allow it to have the citizen review that it hasn't had so far. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefan. Leslie, followed by Rebecca. Stone Street.
Hi, I'm Leslie Saunders. I'm also speaking on the same topic. There are many perspectives on this. I'm all for the handicapped access on the ramps. That's a good thing. But I don't agree that we should be changing what has been a historical look in our downtown. So the 301 building, the Butler Bank building, has been at the heart of this city for next year will be 100 years. And here we've just done a beautiful beautification project for next year's 100th anniversary. And now they're saying it's going to get torn out to be replaced with planters. I look at this town, I've worked in many businesses down here, and it's a thriving downtown, which a lot of rural places don't have. And part of our economy is the attraction of this town. And I think to take away the only green space we have right downtown is a shame. And I think it's also not good for our local economy and businesses and tourism, which most businesses here will rely on. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. Rebecca, and then Jody Bear.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Stone Street and I am discussing the same subject. And I don't know all the ins and outs, but I wanted to thank you all for all that you do for Hood River. I don't know all the ins and outs, like I said, but apparently there was an agreement made in the fall of 2020 between ODOT and the city manager at that time about this whole curb situation, which is fine. The problem that I'm seeing is that now fast forward to the spring of 2023 and getting a notice 3 years later that things are going to be changing. Now, if Steph had notice before, maybe fall of 2020, he wouldn't have put all that money into making that curbside beautiful like it is right now. So I'm not sure what's going on with the notice thing. I understand that there's procedures. If somewhere Hood River dropped the ball, okay, that's okay. Then maybe think about what you need to do to rectify the situation. That would be great. I think that'd be great. And if you haven't seen it, you should check it out because it's really pretty, that corner. And there's a lot of money spent. And I think it should be kept there like it is. So thank you.
Thank you. Jody and then Bill Weiler.
Just the opposite.
Yep.
I'm Bill Weller, live in Lyle. I've had a nonprofit here for 26 years in Hood River. Speaking regarding a complaint being filed by Jody Bear tomorrow, 7/25, on the city of Hood River's waterfront storm line project. This is a complaint of violation of state laws, mismanagement of funds. We are in a climate emergency. We're here this evening to embolden you, our city leaders, to take right action toward reversing the climate emergency on this planet. Please be patient as you listen to us tonight, as you read through the documents. Information is challenging, all too familiar, yet we see possibility, inspiration, positive direction toward the current mess. Action is needed now. We need your help. The complaint states, City of Hood River's prime consultant has derailed this project since taking over as the downtown water quality design on February 2nd of this year. The city must get this project back on track. This crucial time, the project is needed to create cooler microclimates, significantly improve water quality, and third, generate prototype solutions to be replicated throughout the city and beyond. That means by which we transform our community to meet the planet's needs are all that we have. Honesty, transparency, accountability in our personal and professional lives are required. Business as usual, including self-indulgence, equivocation, discrimination, and law breaking does not work. This is our opportunity to clarify that we are united as a community that will meet the climate emergency and set an example for others to follow. Business as usual creates self-protective atmosphere where everyone is looking out for themselves instead of the community's greater good. We must work collaboratively in order to support one another. No one can be left behind. The work we are called to do is for the children of today's children. They deserve the best from us all. YSM Solutions, a sub-consultant on this project, managed and designed the downtown water quality portion of this project. YSM Solutions is the sole proprietorship, woman-owned business. Jody Bear is the owner. YSM was terminated by the prime, quote, for their convenience on February 2nd. The prime's principal and project manager violated professional ethics. The process of breaking state laws and proposing changes to the project that are inconsistent with the project presented to the city council on March 14th and August 8th of last year. The prime's project manager intends to sign and seal final design documents prepared under Jody's responsible charge without her permission. This will be in direct violation of Oregon administrative rules, which state registrants shall not affix their signatures or seals to any plans or documents dealing with subject matter in which they lack competence, nor to any such plan or document not prepared under their direction and control. I have one more paragraph. If the prime's project manager proceeds to seal work prepared under Jody's responsible charge, a formal complaint with the Oregon State Board of Professional Engineers, or OSBELS, will be carried through. Osbeals will open a case and formally investigate. The most probable outcome will leave the city of Hood River without construction plans for the downtown area. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Bill. Jody and then Susan Crowley.
Thank you. I am Jody Bear. I live on Taylor Avenue here in Hood River. I have been a professional engineer in the city for 29 years and resident for most of that time. Speaking on the same topic, here are additional summarized excerpts. Supported by the city engineer Wade Seaborn and council, YSM delivered this project from concept to near complete construction documents in less than a year. Wade and I were the only engineers involved who understood the design criteria complexities, and I was solely responsible for all engineering design details. Since my termination, I have continued to do everything possible to inform city staff of the project issues. My intention has always been to get this project back on track and realigned with the project objectives. Subsequently, I've learned new city staff in the Prime are proposing fundamental changes that will significantly reduce water quality treatment, increase initial and long-term costs, and create further delays. These are unnecessary, maladaptive changes at a critical time contrary to the city's and citizens' interests. In February, I met with the city manager to inform her of project risks and appealed for city action. No action was taken, and I filed a formal complaint with Osbeals in March. Osbeals is charged with enforcing professional engineering ethics in the state. If the Prime signs my work with their seal, the likely result is the construction documents will be no longer available for this project. My scope on this project started very small. It was gradually increased by the Prime until I essentially took over responsibility for all the downtown work. This was never my intention, but was necessitated by the lack of adequate professional project staffing by the Prime. I was in constant communication with the Prime throughout the project. After the Prime repeatedly failed to formalize their contractual promises, I finally paused my work in November 22. Had I continued, final design documents would have been finished in January and the project would have been completed construction this fall. While significantly mismanaging this project, resulting in delays, wasted effort, rework, and now major changes in the project's objectives, the Prime has invoiced the city for over $1.2 million, 99% of the project budget, while significant portions of the design and work remain unfinished. There is a better alternative. The project, as designed by myself and my team, is a modern, innovative approach to stormwater treatment at a scale not seen before in Oregon and possibly the US. This project can still happen and can be wildly successful. However, it must be thoughtfully and competently implemented as regards design, construction, and long-term maintenance. The resources needed are available, and together we can get this done. Please request complaint documents from the city manager so that you have the facts to decide your course of action. We say we act with honesty, transparency, and accountability. That has not been true on this project. A major shift in how we work is required. These foundational principles must be our guide forward as we navigate the unprecedented challenges we face. Our children and their children are counting on us. Please let me know when you're going to discuss this topic so we can listen. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jody. Susan and then Marion McNew.
As much.
I'm speaking on the issue that's on the agenda later on proposed parking limitations. Do you want to defer that to later?
Sure, well, let's defer that comment for later and then you can speak to this one next.
All right, thank you. If Ms. Alder, yes. I'm Susan Crowley, 411 12th Street, Hood River. And I wanted to talk quickly about the 301 galleries, the way we know it right now, the Butler Bank building issue. It just seems to me that it's a little bit premature that what might be required is to defer this until you've had a chance to send it to for the proper historic review. And I've checked the comprehensive plan, which is, you folks know better than most, has mandatory provisions in it. And it seems to suggest that at the very least, it should go in front of the Historic Review Board for some kind of public hearing about the value of this as an historic property, which is certainly beloved by not only tourists, but all the local folks here. And so I've included with this particular note, kind of a listing of what might be the applicable comprehensive plan provisions. I kind of think that they may actually preclude the city from agreeing to an MOU with ODOT in the proper exercise of its obligations under its own comprehensive plan. So I think that maybe a little bit more time to review this. As of course, others have mentioned, notice has been extremely short, 2 working days in which to kind of check out whatever applicable statutes might exist, as well as to try and prepare materials for you is not a lot. And it's my understanding even the property owner did not really know about this particular item on the agenda. So that also from a public notice perspective and transparency perspective might be a good plan to consider, just continuance of this issue item to a later date, whichever is convenient for you.
Thank you, Susan. Marion and then Margot Blosser.
Hi, is that? I'm Marion McNew and I own Mountain Gardens, and thank you for listening to us. I'm also speaking on 301 Oak. I originally designed all the downtown parks in 2000 to 2002, Overlook Park, Stratton Gardens, Second Street Pocket Park. So I have a long history with the city and also with maintenance. And until 2 years ago, we did all of that maintenance for 20 years. And then Crystal Green Landscaping underbid us and took over, and the maintenance has been minimal at best, in my opinion. And now I took a couple of pictures of the Second Street Pocket Park right across the street. And this is what it looked like 2 years ago. I don't know which way I should turn it. This way. Anyway, it's all dead pretty much right now. It died. And I don't know if they're not doing any maintenance anymore, but and the same like this I can give you those pictures. Maybe look at that here, and then now it's dead. And so I feel like to take something that's thriving like the Butler Bank, we actually did the renovation there this winter and spring, and it's just growing in now in preparation for next year's centennial celebration, and something that the property owner is taking care of, and there's no cost to the city to turn that into planters that may die. And all the planters along State Street, as I'm sure you've seen over the last few years, have all died. They're all had dead plants. And then 4 years ago, we moved some of them up to the Rose Garden and planted them there again. And when we did the maintenance, we always did a lot of the work complimentary because we really cared and we loved it, and it was my baby. And it breaks my heart to see it all dying, because it's tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars that it would take to replace all of this. And so the consideration of thinking that there's another prime focal point downtown that's looking really attractive and pleasing, and the tourists and locals really enjoy, and turn that into something that possibly will have more dead plants in it if the city has to take care of it. It's just, planters are a challenge and they need a lot of care. And I can't comment on how necessary this handicap accessibility is, and it might be needed, but I wanted to comment on the landscape portion because I've been doing this for over 40 years and I'm certainly very qualified to speak on that portion. So that was my thing.
Thank you, Marion.
And I don't know if I can hand you this.
You could give them to Abigail.
Okay.
Thank you.
Because I dated them, it's 2 years, they were taken just a day before we handed the maintenance over 2 years ago.
Margot and then Sophia.
Good evening, City Council members. My name is Margot Blosser and I reside at 423 East 3rd Street in Hood River. I'm here tonight to speak to you about the road safety problems of the East Eugene neighborhood and the building permit review for a proposed triplex at 501 East 3rd. In the spring of 2023, the developer of 501 East 3rd applied for a townhouse partition land use application. The neighborhood received notice, people were allowed to comment, and the development was going to go before the Planning Commission for review. 1 week before the Planning Commission hearing, the developer withdrew his application and the PC hearing was canceled. Now the developer has applied for a building permit for a triplex. For the triplex permit, no notice has been given to the neighborhood. People will not be allowed to comment, and there will not be an opportunity to have a Planning Commission review. East Eugene is a dangerous road. There have been 2 accidents adjacent to my property. And one accident, a car landed in my yard. In a separate incident, a car hit my house. I am told that in other small cities, development that requires only a building permit is typically reviewed by the city engineer to determine if the road widening provides access to the road providing access to development meets the standards of the TSP. And only if the road meets the standards of the TSP will a review by the planning commission not be required. Because the road frontage for the development of 501 East Third does not meet the TSP standards and it has a history of accidents, Title 17-2010 and 17-2050 apply. They state that road widening that is not part of a partition or a PUD should be reviewed with a site plan review. The site plan review would require notice to the neighborhood, a comment period, and review by the planning commission if necessary. For the townhouse partition land use application, I had a PE traffic engineer look at the proposed road design. In a stamped report, the traffic engineer said the townhouse road design would create a road hazard. He also stated that East Eugene travel lane should stay to the south of the center line to ensure consistency with the road alignment to the west and east. The developer is now proposing, for the townhouse partition review, Wade Seaborn, our former city engineer, stated that he anticipated that the improvements could be moved to the south 2 feet to protect a mature stand of native trees. The road should be widened to 20 feet. I cannot stress enough how vital mature trees shade for East Eugene is. The developer is now proposing to widen the street to only 17 feet and pave the area where Wade Seaborn previously stated the paving could be moved 2 feet to the south to protect the stand of mature trees. I'm getting there, thank you. City council gets asked to solve many problems they do not have the authority to address. For this issue, you have the code, the authority, and an opportunity to see that city council policy goals of a safe road system and a transparent process are implemented. I am asking the city council to request that city staff review the building permit for 501 East Third through the site plan review process as outlined in 17-20. Thank you very much.
Margaret. And again, as I said before, we're not going to discuss each of these items at this time, but please don't take that to mean that we're not hearing you. We are building agendas and process moves on. Sophia and then Esteban.
Hi, my name is Sophia Prokop. I live on East 4th Street and I walk and bike through my neighborhood nearly every day. I'm here to urge the city to take a closer look at the proposed development that Margot was also talking about, 501 East 3rd Street. I plan to raise my future children in this community. I'm invested in the walkability and safety of my neighborhood. I understand the need for progress, development, and specifically infill in our land-limited city. However, unlike the flatter Columbia or May Street neighborhoods, our neighborhood has unique topographic challenges that have resulted in a web of curvilinear streets that meet at sharp angles with steep drop-offs and limited sight distance, the ability to see oncoming traffic at most intersections, that is. At the same time, this neighborhood is perfectly situated for walking downtown to downtown or to the Heights via the 2nd Street staircase and the connection to Indian Creek Trail. Because of this, it receives a disproportionate amount of pedestrian use for its size. This neighborhood is zoned for R3, urban high density residential zone, making it susceptible to far more density than its inadequate infrastructure can safely accommodate. For the proposed triplex on East 3rd Street, with driveways down onto East Eugene, the applicant had previously submitted for a townhouse development. This initial application was appealed and then withdrawn just before the design would have been reviewed by the Planning Commission, not allowing the neighborhood to give comment during the appeal. The applicant has again submitted, this time for a triplex, which will still create the same road safety issues on East Eugene Street as the 3 townhouses would have, the same amount of driveways out into the road. It will fly under the radar of the Planning Commission because it is labeled as a triplex and not a townhouse, unfortunately. Our neighborhood does not have the road widths and sight distance as specified in the city's transportation safety plan. Since our neighborhood's substandard roads do not meet the standards of the Transportation Safety Plan, all proposed increases in density, except partitions and PUDs, should be reviewed under 17-20-50, which requires a site plan review. 2 years ago, the land use permit was approved for Hazel Ridge PUD, which will add an additional 10 units onto East Hazel and East Eugene Street. I'm asking that a comprehensive site plan review be done for the 501 East 3rd Street proposal and any future triplex proposals in my neighborhood. Doing so will provide the opportunity to assess potential solutions and mitigate the adverse effects of the inevitable increased density. A site plan review process will allow for thoughtful solutions from all sides. I urge the city not to prioritize density over safety and livability, and that the city council members ask city staff to review the building permit for 501 East 3rd Street under the site plan review process. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Esteban and then Monica.
Muy buenas tardes, señor
Buenas
Don
tardes.
Paul and City Council. My name is Esteban Ortiz. I'm the program coordinator with Comunidades. I'm here to, more than anything, focus on one of the big initiatives that I believe the city of Hood River is doing as the Green City. The big three things that people focus for being a green city is mobility, urban planning, and resource management. But in that topic, we also want to bring up environmental justice because here at Comunidades we advocate for social justice and environmental justice. As you can see, I think it fits perfectly as the topic of environmental justice. One of the things is economic development, which is environmental justice, which is built upon the foundation of equitable development, striving toward a future where all neighborhoods see positive results from economic expansion without suffering adverse effects such as air pollution and displacement. The other thing we'd like to focus on environmental justice and point out is access to affordable housing. And that is a justice-oriented approach to environmental change, also seeks to ensure all people have access to affordable housing. And here as a new member to this community in this city, talking to members that work here, not only, that make this, the bars, the restaurants, the great breweries, that's one of the issues they want, affordable housing. And still, the high housing costs can lead to overcrowding and other unhealthy living conditions in many areas here in the city of Hood River. So I suggest you, Senor Mayor, City Council, hopefully, you take this into consideration that these two axes in which we advocate here at Comunidades about access to affordable housing and equitable development. Thank you.
Thank you, Esteban. Monica.
My name is Monica Ortiz, and as Stefan had mentioned, I'm talking about affordable housing. Where we live, the rent keeps going up, but nothing is getting fixed. Just for an example, my niece came to visit. She's 3. Just getting off of the car and taking 2 steps, she found a pothole, bruised her knee. We just want to get things fixed, there's like no playground for kids either. So if, we can do something about it as well. That's all for me.
Thank you, Monica, for
Thank
coming.
you.
Maria Rodriguez, followed by Claire Griffin. And I'm very pleased this evening that Jaime Rivera has come to help us with interpretation. Jen, if we're using interpretation, could you please set the timer for 4 minutes instead? Thank you.
Me puede dar como 2 oraciones a la vez y yo traduzco eso y nos vamos intercambiando. ¿Está bien? Okay.
Mi nombre es Pilar Rodríguez y yo vivo en Las Trailas y pues venimos aquí todos unidos porque pues nos aumentaron la renta pero no arreglan nada ahí.
So my name is Pilar and I'm here with some other families that live in the trailer parks And the reason I'm here tonight is to speak on the fact that our rent has been increased, but nothing has been fixed in the trailer park.
Como todos los árboles que están ahí son muy viejos y se pueden caer.
One example is there's large trees there that are in the trailer park. And so we're concerned that if one day they fell, what would happen?
Los de estos de la luz también son peligrosos.
Las lámparas de luz.
Ajá.
So the light posts are also seem to be not working adequately, and we're concerned about that as well.
Y pues los que viven ahí, los que hacen drogas, pues hay mucho niño ahí y saben dar una muchacha que es drogada y anda a veces encuerada y por los niños, seguridad de los niños.
We're also concerned about apparent drug use in the park. And there's, for example, there's a lady that sometimes it seems to be under the influence, and nothing has been done about her just being out in the open with children running around. And so that's another concern as well. And that's it. Thank you.
Muchas gracias por
Gracias.
venir. Claire Griffin and then Esther Viveros.
I came and thanks for having us a few minutes. Oh, hi, Grant. I came to talk about the Butler Bank and the, I have a little experience with those big sidewalk cross things put in. I have pictures if anyone wants to see them, but they have those up on 7th and Prospect, and to dismantle and just put in sidewalks right there, right by the old Butler Bank building. Have you never sat on that bench? And the bird feeder and the stones, and it's historic, and it's just such a part of Hood River. I think that these could be done so much better. And the ones like in my neighborhood, that's also part of why I wanted to talk, because first of all, it took so long to put them in. And they must have a structural thing, but they're so much bigger, than sidewalks and curbs and stuff now. So there's like a slant that goes up to them and a slant that goes down. And ODOT never wants to make the cement match whoever puts that in. So it's like screaming bright white in our neighborhood. And who takes care of those planter things? They're just like dusty weeds. And the only reason I'm not complaining about my neighborhood as much as I'm saying, if we see this downtown, y'all, I just think it would really detract from the historic. It's our lovely Main Street, Hood River, and that's like a vital corner. And thank you for listening to me, but can you just will you please wait and take it under investigation, take some public commentary and go sit on the bench there. He just put so much wonderfulness, and it's been 100 years in the works.
Thank you,
So-
Claire.
Thank you.
Esther and then Maria Jaimes. Esther Viveros, ¿no?
I guess Esther stepped outside.
Okay, great. Maria Jaimes, then Jaime Martinez.
Maria Jaimes.
Thank you for your help, Jaime.
Oh, yeah. So vamos, si podemos intercambiar cada dos frases, yo interpreto.
Mi nombre es María Jaimes y vivo aquí en Hood River en el parqueadero de trailers. Y yo vengo aquí porque el señor el que nos cobra la renta, el dueño, nos aumentó un poco la renta. Nos está aumentando $100 más de renta y pues es mucho dinero para uno.
Thank you. My name is Maria, see? Maria Jaimes, and I also live at the trailer park. And the reason I'm here first is to let you know that same thing, we've seen a rent increase of $100. And for us, it's really a budget issue. We're not able to afford the rent increase.
Y también porque él abusa mucho como de las personas migrantes, porque hace un tiempo atrás yo me atrasé con una renta y él fue, el mes anterior fue a mi casa y él es como muy agresivo, muy abusivo. me estaba gritando y diciendo cosas en mi cara y pues como yo estoy embarazada, pues sí me dio un poco de miedo.
And recently, I did fall behind on a month's rent of month's rent, sorry. And the gentleman who owns the park is quite aggressive. And he actually came to our house and was yelling at me in my own home. And I'm pregnant and have little children running around, and I thought that was very wrong of him to do that.
Y también quería decir que como él puso también la tienda ahí pues que donde venden marihuana, y yo tengo 2 niñas que se bajan del bus, y cuando mis niñas se bajan, a veces están como ellos comprando ahí y se echan de reversa, y pues mi preocupación es más eso porque tengo miedo de que como ellos están drogados y esto, de que vayan a atropellar a algún niño o quizás a mis hijas.
I'm also concerned about the fact that there's a marijuana dispensary that sells marijuana just outside of the trailer park. And me, along with other families, have young children who were often playing in the street and around the trailer park. And I'm concerned that if one day one of those people are under the influence, that they back up and then they may hit a child. I'm concerned about their safety. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Let me give those.
Yo sí quería hablar un poquito de
Okay, yeah, and he would also like to.
Please, you have 4 minutes.
Ok, mi nombre es Jaime Martínez Medina, ella es mi esposa. También yo vine porque en realidad cuando estaba otro manager antes que se fue de allí del parqueadero, él antes de irse a mí me contó unas cosas que este señor estaba haciendo muchas cosas ilegales en el parqueadero. Nos hizo firmar unos papeles como para poner ese negocio como en blanco, como diciendo que tú tenías como 2 carros y te decía, si tenías 2 carros que firmaras una hoja como porque eran tus carros. Pero cuando el otro se fue, me dijo a mí, él dice, yo antes de irme te voy a decir unas cosas, dice, este señor está haciendo muchas cosas malas con ustedes, dijo los hispanos, porque era hispano, pero hasta que él se fue cuando me dijo a mí, dice, él le sacó la firma a todos engañados para poner ese negocio, y hasta que se fue los echó de cabeza, pero en realidad el señor sí es muy una persona que no nos ayuda en nada, es el dueño, yo entiendo que es el dueño del parqueadero, pero no quita la nieve, no limpia, no hace nada, nomás sube la renta y nadie le puede decir nada que porque es el dueño.
Okay, so talking about the same trailer park. He's the husband of Maria Jaimes, and his concern is a situation that happened when there was a sale of, I guess of the park to another gentleman, the one that currently owns it. The outgoing owner actually took the time to meet with the residents and let them know that there was some sort of a petition that they were signing. They thought that it was to register how many cars they had in the park. It turns out that they feel they were somewhat duped into signing a document that basically gave the okay for that dispensary to be built there, or to be opened there next to the park. Their concerns, further concerns of the rent being hiked, and then still there not being any snow removal during the winter time. Like they mentioned, some improvements that they feel need to be made to the park and the infrastructure in the park. They feel duped into signing that document. They're not really sure what that was about.
Pues lo que puedo decir yo que pues yo tengo como 20 años aquí, pero es muy difícil ahorita para nosotros los hispanos, andar yo con esta vez ya serían como 3 veces que me muevo de parqueadero. A veces renté ya uno y me pasó lo mismo, renté con unos departamentos, me pasó lo mismo. Para nosotros los hispanos aquí, yo en Corribe, del tiempo que yo tengo, se está volviendo muy difícil para la renta para nosotros, porque el bolsillo de nosotros es más bajo, no ganamos dinero como cualquiera a lo mejor de ustedes de aquí, y a lo mejor hasta que no están en el zapato de uno, a veces no se dan cuenta de lo que uno sufre pues para la vivienda.
He also feels that there's some racism that's occurring here, where he feels like the migrant families are being treated wrong that live there. They're not treated the same as others. He mentions the farm worker wages that they live on. It doesn't fit the increase in the rent, and he's just wondering if people could put themselves in his shoes as a migrant farm worker, where he's not making as much of a wage. How would you feel with these situations happening to you. That's it, and thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming. Estela Avina, followed by maybe Juan Monk.
Mi nombre es Estela Avina. Yo vivo por el lado del Parque de las Patinetas. Lo que nosotros el problema, yo tengo problemas en mi vista. Entonces, si pues yo no puedo manejar, si quiero ir digamos, a la Walmart, me tengo que ir, pero con mucho cuidado porque hay muchas personas ahorita que viven ahí alrededor del parque. Entonces, pues nos da miedo con las personas que están ahí y pues toda esa área está oscura, no hay luz y pues para movernos a otro lugar no podemos porque como decía la compañera, están muy caras las rentas como para nosotros y pues como estamos en apartamento, no nos podemos pasar de una cierta cantidad. Entonces,
¿Puedo
si ganamos...
traducir hasta ahí?
Sí.
¿Usted está en los apartamentos que están en cuál calle? ¿Río Bella? Río Bella. ¿Y están más para abajo?
Sí, están más abajo.
¿Por la Cascade?
Sí.
Siguiendo hacia...
Sí, están del Parque de las Patinetas.
Trying to find out the location of where they're living. I believe she lives in the apartment complex that's below the skate park.
Yep.
So on the street of where the skate park is.
Thank you.
And her concern is the lighting in that neighborhood. And Estela, ¿se llama usted?
Estela.
Estela, sorry. In Estela's case, she has a hard time seeing at night. And so she's not willing to drive. She would like to be able to walk, to the store or to Walmart or whatever. But she's also concerned about the people that hang out around the skate park and that area around there. And just for safety reasons, she wishes that there would be a little bit more light in that neighborhood.
Entonces, también como para poder cruzar, digamos, de Subway para la Ride, también muchas veces nos miran los carros que estamos ahí parados y en lugar de pararse, le dan más recio.
Also, the crosswalk, I think we're all aware of the crosswalk between the corner at Subway, crossing towards Rite Aid parking lot. She's also mentioning that's a very dangerous location for her to cross. It seems that when people see folks at the crosswalk, they either slow down or they step on it to get through there as fast as possible.
Okay. Lo de la renta.
También digan, tiene 4 minutos.
Pues como le digo de la renta, nosotros no podemos ganar más de cierta cantidad porque entonces tenemos que salirnos a buscar vivienda a otro lado y en realidad no ganamos tanto para poder conseguir un lugar más seguro porque está demasiado elevada la renta.
So she wishes they could move out of those apartment complexes, but if folks are not aware, to live in those apartment complexes, you have to make below a certain amount of a wage and a salary, and so they feel like they're kind of stuck. They would love to make more money, but then if they make more money, they won't be able to live there anymore. And so that's another concern is that she's kind of stuck in the middle there.
Okay, gracias.
Okay. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks for coming. Thank you. I think Juan Monje, maybe is it?
Will be Ubaldo, and in my name, he was signing for me, and I was like coming out late, and
So he signed, this, Ubaldo, is your turn now?
yes, and I
Okay.
put my name in there too, so
Great,
just
okay.
to make sure that.
Ubaldo, thank you.
Yeah, my name is Ubaldo Hernandez. I'm the director for Comunidades, and I'm here on behalf of my community because there is a big issue with affordable housing. Unfortunately, a lot of our working community, Latino community, has not been able to stay here in this area. The cost of living or housing is getting out of the roofs. And a lot of members of the community feels like a part of the victims of predatory practices, economic predatory practices by real estate companies, developers, and anything that's been proposed to ease the problem with affordable housing that Latino community has no access to it because of the cost. Our community that's been working in this community for 20, 40, 60 years, they are not being able to stay here because of that. And they still picking our food, packing our food, serving our food in the restaurants, making our beds in the hotels, but they're not being able to make it to stay here. Like at the trailer park, most of the people are coming today. That's because the landlord has a really predatory practices. And just for a space, not a trailer, he's charging want to charge $900 just to rent the space in a place where he never gives maintenance and all the stuff. So also, I want to say something. I said it before here. Hood River wants to work into a green community and to enhance the life of people who live in this community. But through that process, the people that's been excluded is the Latino community, the low income community, because this is not just an issue for the Latino community. We're talking about the working low income community that hasn't been able to stay here, that has to move out. And when we are moving out of this area and people are driving 20, 40, 80 miles a day, they're using a gasoline cars because they can afford to buy a Tesla, an electric car. And that's part of the problem. If there is not social justice, it cannot be a clean town because all the working force is moving out. All the people that depends also for the stores, hospitals are moving out and their health is under risk. Their families, the relationship with their families are at risk. And a lot of youth are in that same problems. They don't have places to live. And there is a lot of homeless in the Latino community. We might not see them on the street. Yes, we might not see them on the streets, but because of the tradition and culture of our communities, we always open the doors to other people. But there is a lot of people living with other families because they can afford to live or pay rent in other places. Thank you.
Thank you, Ubaldo. Tad Johnston, followed by Patricia Diaz.
Hello, Tad Johnston, 925 Union Street here in Hood River. I'm talking about the parking, 72-hour that you're going to be doing. There's an issue in some neighborhoods in Hood River with people just leaving their cars for long term. I know the law where they have to be licensed, which they are, but they still just sit there for 6 months, maybe 8 months out of the year and don't get moved. So I feel something needs to happen with those cars. Something needs to be addressed on those. And there's other situations where like there's a business on the Heights that they're parking in the sidewalk right away and also have their dumpsters in the city right away, but nothing's being enforced on those issues. And certain other issues that there needs to be better enforcement too on those issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Ted. Patricia, then Jose Guzman.
That's okay. Hi, good afternoon. My name is Patricia Diaz and I'm here to speak on behalf on the trailer park in front of Subway. I'm pretty sure every single one of us here in this room has seen the trailer park. It is disgusting. It is very, very bad place to even try to raise a family. I mean, we struggle on an everyday basis. I mean, our kids, they get the bus next to the taco shop there. And they have to line up every single day in the morning and they have to stand there next to that marijuana shop. And there's people shopping on the daily in the mornings. And for them to see that from a young aspect of mind, it kind of like rattles their mind up at a younger age to kind of pursue to do things that they shouldn't do at a younger age per se. Like, why did they put the dispensary down by our community? Why didn't they put it up by richer people's communities? Or I'm not understanding the fact that we are struggling and people aren't understanding the fact that we need help. And I'm here to ask you guys for help. I mean, my trailer specifically, there's a log that is leaning on my trailer with the electricity on it. It's sparked before. We've called the electricity. They've done nothing about it because the owner doesn't want to take care of it. So that's another issue. There's no park for the kids to play. There's potholes all over the whole entire place. There's the manager there. That's the owner's friend. They do a lot of drugs there and they just bring a lot of other people and they do a bunch of like methamphetamine, stuff like that. And you'll just see a bunch of people running around the whole trailer park and these kids are seeing those things and it's not right. It's not right.
Thank you,
So,
Patricia.
thank you guys.
Jose, and then Eulalio, maybe? Jose Guzman, yeah.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es José Guzmán.
Good evening, my name is Jose Guzman.
Yo creo que venimos todos a lo mismo, los compañeros de las trailers, que sí es un relato ahí con todo lo que hay ahí. Hay muchos de esos drogadictos y todo. A veces no le habla la policía porque se los lleva y a veces no hace nada de policía ni nada. Y como todos dicen, hay muchos niños y luego pasan así nada, mucha gente ahí de recio. Pues eso, se pueden atravesar los niños, pueden llevarlos y se meten en problemas como unos como ellos.
So my concern is also there at the location of the trailer park by Subway, across the street from Subway. My concerns are similar to what other folks have expressed, is the drug use and also the possibility of an accident happening there with one of with the traffic that goes through the park as well.
Y luego ya están arreglando otra trailer ahí que ya van a hacer muchas y pues todo eso también va a afectar también a toda la gente, ¿sabe qué?
¿Van a poner más trailers?
Están arreglando otra allí, y pues sabe que gente irá a volver a llegar allí. Y si llega uno de los mismos de esos, pues más relajo se va a hacer.
They're also fixing some of the parts of the park to welcome more residents there. And well, we're concerned, we don't know who those folks are going to be. Is it just going to be more drug use and more issues coming up there at the park?
Yo creo que es todo. Entonces,
That's it. I would like to allow somebody else to.
Thank you for coming, sir. Eulalio?
Yo vivo ahí por 14 años en un parqueadero.
So I've lived at the trailer park by Subway for 14 years now.
Él nunca limpia los parqueaderos, nunca nada. Los árboles están muy viejos, se están cayendo los árboles y él aumenta la renta.
And we haven't seen any maintenance during the winter time, during the snow, during the bad weather. And we're also concerned about the trees and their condition, the ones that are in the park as well.
Y todo el tiempo está aumentando la renta. Cuando estaba el COVID, aumentó 175, pagamos 525, y aumentó 175 de un trancazo.
Over the year that COVID hit in 2020, he increased the rent, for example, from $525. He increased that $175 to $700.
Yeah.
Y después de-
Y no, después de eso, pasó el tiempo y volvió a aumentar otra vez la renta $100 más.
And then a few months later, he raised it another $100.
Y ahorita quería vender el lugar y no lo pudo vender. Y luego dijo que para ayudarnos a nosotros, no vendió el lugar, nos aumentó otros $100.
So then there was a point where he was telling people that he was going to sell the park. The sale didn't go through, and so he came back and then he raised our rent another $100.
Ahorita estamos, quiere que paguemos en octubre $900 nomás por el display.
And then so now we're at the point where in October, we're set to be paying $900 per month just for the space to park their trailer.
No, es que las trailers ya están muy viejas, no podemos moverlas en ningún lado y él está haciendo un abuso ahí.
And so our trailers are so, not in good shape anymore. And even if we wanted to move those trailers to another park, we can't do it. We're not able to do that. They're too old to move.
Esto es lo que ven. O sea que yo gano muy poquito dinero para pagar mi renta. Me agarro 1,200. Le voy a dar $900. ¿Qué me va a quedar para pagar?
I make $1,200 a month. And so if I'm being charged $900 just to rent that space, he's like, you guys can do the math. Where does my money go?
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you for coming. That brings us to the end of the people who signed up to speak to us. I want to thank you all for coming. Muchas gracias por venir a hablar a nosotros. Discúlpame que no podemos hacer mucho y
We have one more gentleman that signed up for the.
great, come on up.
Yo vengo desde la Taila, te sube la renta, subir la renta y no tengo como para pagar otro, para irme a otro para acá, para todos los compañeros, no va a alcanzar para pagar la renta.
So in my case, you know, me and my family's budget is not enough to be able to pay for the new rent, and we also don't have enough money to move to a different park.
Ajá, y pues mi esposa vive, pues trabaja aquí cerquita y me voto a otro lado, a mí me preocupa mucho.
And the only way that they would be able to move anywhere is if his wife quit her job, but then they wouldn't be able to, you know, to move elsewhere. Then they wouldn't be able to make ends meet financially.
Yo quiero que ya no mente, digo, no hacen nada, el de para acá no hace nada el señor dueño. Pues.
If you could help us make sure that the rent isn't increased any further, that would really help us out. And certainly, if he's raising it with no reason of giving us, you know, more maintenance or helping us out a little bit more there around the park, I don't see a reason why the rent should go up anymore.
Ya no estoy inventando tanta. Puede ser el paquero, la tele de nosotros y el terreno está sube el terreno. No tiene chiste, no siento.
Luckily, we own our trailer, but we feel it's unjust for the rent to be increased more and more.
Thank you.
Sí, yes.
Jaime, could you translate for me for a moment, please? Thanks so much for coming.
Gracias mucho por venir.
The city has no control over the price of rentals in the city.
La ciudad, infortunadamente, no tiene control sobre la cantidad que cobran de renta.
The city council is very committed to working hard on reducing the costs of housing in our city, and we're doing many things, but we have a lot of things we cannot do.
Y claro que estamos haciendo lo que podemos para controlar el costo de la vivienda aquí actualmente en la ciudad, dice, pero hay ciertas cosas que nosotros no podemos controlar, como el costo de la renta.
And we are not going to discuss this now, but it is on our agenda for future meetings.
Y aunque no vamos a poder seguir platicando más o discutiendo este tema más, tengan por seguro que sí va a estar en una agenda para una junta en el futuro.
Sí, porque haga la limpieza, todo está bien, no hace nada.
It'd be great to have a clean community to live.
Entiendo, gracias.
Tengo y el vecino está con un perro cagado. Yo ya le he dicho de eso y no hace nada.
There's pets and animals defecating, and it'd be nice to live in a clean neighborhood.
Thank you all. And you don't have to stay. We're going to talk about other things now.
La junta sigue hablando de más temas. Están bienvenidos a quedarse o si quieren también pueden retirarse.
I just want to say 2 words.
I'm sorry, Ubaldo. We're going to move on. Thank you.
Okay,
No, I'm sorry, Ubaldo. Thank you.
We hope the next talk about housing, we will be advised, it will be soon, not in a couple months. We have the right to be here. and we
You do
to
not
be
have
here.
the right to disrupt this meeting. Please stop.
We hear every time demanding, be listening and demanding justice. Because we deserve justice. We have the right to be here, to live here, because we work here, our kids go to school here, and we have the right. Thank you.
Next is the consent agenda. We discussed this, and we're going to take the MOU with ODOT for the curb cuts off the consent agenda. We feel it deserves more consideration. So we're going to revise the consent agenda to remove item number 3. So I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
I move that we approve the consent agenda, editing out not to include item number 3.
Moved by Grant. Second by Mark. Discussion. Who's online tonight, Abigail?
Mayor, I believe Councilor Saunders is and possibly Councilor Cunahan.
Councilor Saunders is, I do not see.
Megan, are you with us?
Yes, if you can hear me.
So we're on the consent agenda. We have moved and second. Any discussion on the consent agenda? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion passes. When shall we discuss the curb ramps? Do we want to do that? I think this is up to the council. Council, what would you like to do about that?
Mayor, may I suggest, I talked to one person who's contracting with ODOT for this, and she informed me that that ODOT is in communication with Mr. Lunding and the other property owners. And they asked if just another week or two, they should be able to have an update. So perhaps at the next meeting, which is August 14th or August 28th, but they think that they're close.
An update, we council would get an update from the vendor, is that what you're saying, Abigail?
Right, I think if I can get an update from ODOT, and they have found a path forward with Mr. Lunding, or there might be other property owners, I'm not sure, that we can maybe bring you something that we feel comfortable recommending in 2 weeks.
Great, so we'll hear more in 2 weeks, and no benches and bird baths will be destroyed between then and then.
Between now and then, yes,
Great.
yeah, at least bring you an update, hopefully an action item by August 14th.
Mark.
So I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
One is in the packet materials that we had before, and then again today, there's no drawings that show planters or anything. It's just two little teeny blue boxes on the corner. And how do we not have the information that other people obviously do? So maybe they can address that for the next meeting. I see other intersections where I equally have questions. The 5th Street intersection is a curiosity to me. The Egg Harbor at 13th. I'm less concerned about the city property at Saruta Park and Rotary Skate Park, just because they're relatively small and we know it's there and stuff. But some of these tightly built commercial places that they have current situation, I think understanding what the actual design is. And then my last question is, when we did the IGA to take over Oak from 13th, from 9th, I don't know, from wherever through downtown, do we not also own this? They give us dollars, we fix the ramps. Was that not part of the deal? I don't quite remember or understand.
If you want to. This is basically a free project that ODOT's going to do to retrofit these ramps. If you want to undertake it, I would think they'd say have at it.
I don't.
I doubt they would provide the funding though.
Mark, there are drawings for every intersection.
Stephanie, excuse me, could you come up, please?
Okay, sure. Thanks, guys.
Sorry, tell the reporter who you are, please.
This is Stephen Lemming, 301 Oak Street. The way I started receiving the drawings was from Epic Solutions, started sending me the drawings from ODOT. Now, they only included 3rd and Oak, but they're every intersection in town, they intend to change that. I've had long conversations with Arthur Babbitts. He is concerned. So, when you go over there, I think it's 12th Street, you have that elevated sidewalk. And so ODOT can't figure out how to make that wheelchair accessible. So what they're going to do is they're going to close that off and take out the stairs so that nobody has access there. So there are a lot of questions. So the only way I receive this is when Epic Solutions, who are in the process of starting the eminent domain to take this land, it's currently running. These drawings were there. They did not include the other initiatives, but it is ODOT's intention to redo every intersection in town. There's a bump out by what was the lingerie shop. There are going to be planters on every corner. Maintenance are these trash collectives. It looks like there's some brickwork. And sarcastically, I'll say it looks like ODOT, McDonald's, Redmond, Oregon. It would be a travesty for town.
Thank you, Stephen.
Okay.
So we'll hear back from you perhaps as early as our next meeting.
At least with an update, yes.
Thank you, Abigail. Staff, council, how are we feeling about that? Doug.
Just one more thing too. So just curious why this would or would not have to go in front of landmarks.
What would go? The removal of vegetation. Landmarks, the way landmarks work, this is an individually listed property. And I think it's also on the local historic inventory. It preserves structures. So it regulates alterations, external alterations to structures. So this landscaping, as I understand it, was installed just a few years ago. It's not part of the structure. It's not, certainly not historic. It's not subject to historic review.
Oh, pardon me, Adam. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Please, no, thank you. This is hard work up here. We're doing our.
Do you want to
Thank
add
you.
anything?
Anything else, Doug?
No, thanks. Thank you.
Other questions, council? All right, so I think that is the disposition of item number 3 from the consent agenda. We're going to move on to discussion items. Is that great? Scope of development code audit. Dustin, Kevin.
Thank you, Mayor and councilors. Just a few remarks. As you know, as a part of the 23-24 work plan, council identified an audit and update of the development code as a critical project. The packet on pages 113 to 115 has a cover sheet, and 116, 117 a draft charter for this project. The development code, as you probably know, includes Title 16, the subdivision ordinance, and Title 17, the zoning ordinance.
Excuse me, just a second. Reg, could you do me a favor? Could you help the folks understand that we can hear them and can't close the door? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. So again, Title 16 and 17 of the municipal code is what we'll be focusing on the subdivision and zoning ordinances. The audit is to identify inconsistencies with state land use law, subject matter omissions, internal conflicts, ambiguities, grammatical errors, and opportunities for improved organization and formatting. And based on the audit findings, an implementation framework will be prepared to update the development code. So following completion of the code audit, we'll move into a second phase, and that's preparation of draft code updates. But tonight, we're really just focused on that first phase, the code audit. The deliverable of that audit, again, an assessment of Title 16 to 17, identification of code chapters or sections that are in need of update, review of alternatives to accomplish the updates, and recommendations and a work plan to complete those updates. Tonight, the council was asked to provide update on the direction for this project, the draft scope that we've got in your packet. Interested in any feedback you have, including the extent of public outreach, engagement, and anticipated outcomes. Staff does anticipate working with a consultant on this project to perform the audit and share findings and recommendations with the public through a bilingual project website. It's anticipated that community input will be sought during the code audit phase, and that a committee of representatives, including stakeholders, builders, designers, land use professionals, and others, including property owners, could be brought into a stakeholder committee to work on the code update. So again, based on council feedback, we'll prepare a request for proposals for a consultant. That's what I've got. Dustin, you want to jump in with any comments?
Yeah, included in the packet, we included a project charter. This is our effort to really try to articulate what this project is and what it is not. Given some time and the complexities and the phases that we are going to look at, we wanted to make sure that we didn't, one of the most important features in our risk assessment is scope expansion. So we want to make sure that we have scoped this and we have really that we have council's consensus, or at least its support in this is the scope we want to engage with, and this is the project before we embark on it. What we can't do, and what would be pretty damaging, would be to get down as we've done work and realize that our scope and expectations of how we visualize this didn't align with the council deliverable. So this effort right here is to really take a look at that. Kevin mentioned 3 specific points. What does engagement look like? Is it information sharing? Is it workshopping? What does DEI look like? Diversity, equity, inclusion in a code audit. And really, how does council want to be engaged in this process? Are you here through every step of the process? Do you want to hear the report at the end? These are some of the features, and we have recommendations built into this that we'd like you to opine on and make sure that they represent your interest. Again, this is a really two-part. First part just being an audit, second part being the legislative aspects where we do expect to have public engagement. We do expect to have a public hearing process that really some of these matters and some of this code work and changes really happens. This is really to take a look now and to assess what is the condition of the code. Is this repair or is this salvage?
Yes. Questions? Council, questions for staff? Doug.
So yeah, just understanding scope, et cetera. I'm wondering regarding, say on page 116, where we're talking about the desired outcome is legal, clear, efficient, user-friendly development code, use of tables, illustrations that accompany and clarify the text. What would it be prudent to make a recommendation that the platform in which it's on can be enhanced to do better searching? And I mean, right now, the way that it kind of works when you go to the code and look it up, it's like you have to go to different pages and it's kind of hard to search. So I know that's kind of limitations of how our website is set up, et cetera, but I'm just not sure if that would be part of what that is saying in the goal, or if you would interpret it that way, or maybe it needs to be clarified if others agree.
I would consider it probably a phase 2 goal, but I think, in terms of format, I think format, even in the way it's organized from topic, is it easy to search? So I think formatting actually does have a role in this, just by organization, searchability, legibility. So I absolutely think if we see a flaw in how the code is organized, whether it jumps, whether you have to jump around and navigate it, or is it fluid? Does it actually have a logical order? I think that's fair game for an audit.
Great, thank you.
I appreciate that, Doug. It reminds me of 10 years ago, the question in a lot of committee meetings was, should our website be mobile friendly? Which of course now sounds like a joke. But I mean, how cutting edge are we supposed to be? I work for the county in Washington. So I had to interface with the state of Washington website, which stank. And I didn't appreciate that. So I appreciate the modern sensibility, like how good or primitive should we expect to be? Other questions for staff? Mark?
Yeah. I have 4 things that I'm thinking about, and I think they're in here, but they don't directly translate. So I'm just going to say them if that's okay. First, that it have a housing focus, so not focused on LI or commercial beyond, expanding mixed use where possible, where we can get commercial and housing kind of things. I think that we'll get to all those things, but we need an apple that we can eat, basically. Concentrating on process efficiencies, and I think that this is right in with what your staff goals are. How can we have a transparent, more efficient process that allows people to see what's going to happen, and that's in fact what happens. And this gets into the stuff that Doug talked about as well, I think. My perception is there's inconsistencies that create conflict and understanding between different housing types in different housing zones. And I think that we can fix those. And one example is when we did middle and there was a building height, but it conflicted with housing height in R2 for townhouses, and which gets to my last point, which is we want to avoid incenting very high dollar developments just because it has an advantage in code, right? We want to have an equal footing between, more modest or attainable housing. I thought middle was a great place to start with that, but looking for places where we are accidentally incenting $1 jillion house instead of 2 $500 million houses, so that kind of thing. So I think that most of that is in here. I didn't really see it and it didn't jump out at me. So hopefully we'll see that.
Grant, anything?
My concern is that this scope may not lead to the goals or outcomes we've talked about or striving to achieve. Since we have constrained land here, for example, any code or update that relies on our current TSP requires a certain amount of frontage improvements, sidewalks, curb cuts, et cetera, which eats up space. If we don't incorporate some of those considerations also into this process, would we not be thus forcing ourselves to revisit that later, or having to go through this process again with those additional considerations in mind? That's one thought I had about that. If I understand that you're phasing correctly, phase one is basically proofreading or syntax for any errors or complications in our current code. Am I understanding that correctly? And then phase two will be more of the collaborative problem-solving phase.
I would take it beyond syntax. Ambiguities, subject matter omissions. Your code doesn't mention this thing called a cell phone. Heard it's going to be a big thing in the future. It has very little in the way of DEI considerations. So taking an audit and say, does this thing either implicitly or explicitly have bias that damages people, that maybe damages a certain population? That has never been done. DEI didn't exist for 40 years after the vast majority of this code was written. So taking a look at that, from me being a code writer in multiple places for a quarter century now, there's aspects of this code that are unclear. They may not be complex, but as a user here, that creates issues. It creates issues for people who use the code, creates issues for people that rely on the code to deliver something predictable. It creates issues for staff trying to use this to do more than what it was intended for. The other issue is that the environment has changed. The complexities of our environment, the complexities of the legal environment, and the code has not kept up with that. We have not, every time the state law changed to impact this code, we have not made those changes over time. And we need to have an audit and an analysis to show this is where our code is deficient. This is where our code directs us in ways that we can't enforce by state law. So when we get to places where, we're in a hearing and we have the applicant saying, you can't enforce that, it's illegal. And we have the neighbor saying, it's in your code, we expect it to be delivered. And we say, come up with this statement of, we cannot enforce this provision of the code lawfully. Those are surprises that neither the applicant nor decision makers nor the participants really want to hear. We need to rid those. Those are errors now. So beyond syntax, it is subject matter, it is organization, it's clarity in language, and expectations for everyone involved. So the audit is big. Yeah.
And I may not use the
the
most vernacular, but you get my drift, I think.
And I think you raise a really important point, Grant, which is that second part where policy decisions will get made, which will incent or disincent certain types of development. That's going to be smart, collaborative stuff. That's not so much in the first three.
Yeah, I agree with Mark in that we have not, based on how our code is currently set up, it is set up for a particular type of dwelling, say residential land use exclusively, a particular type of dwelling for a particular type of mortgage at a particular income strata. It's not designed flexible or inclusive enough for a number of rungs on the ladder. My interest would be to create a zoning code that has more of those rungs and be able to provide avenues for developers to develop those properties that will enable folks to build and acquire more equity for themselves over time. may not be as massive as the gajillion-dollar mansion or half mansion, but more than zero.
Thank you, Megan. Appreciate you. You're muted, Megan.
Yes. I don't have great service up here. So question for Kevin and Dustin. I definitely see that there's engagement with, users of the code and stuff. I think in phase 2, is that same, or is there engagement with similar folks in phase 1?
Thank you, Councilor Saunders. I think that the intention is to include some collaboration with stakeholders in the first phase as well, but not to the same depth as in the second phase.
I think when we're doing the audit, it would be more of an ask of what issues as a user do you identify with the code? So helping us flag from different user vantage points, things that they've seen or experienced that may not work for them, whether it's whether it's from their experience, whether it's from just that offering, I think needs to be out there to help us identify and help us audit these issues from different user vantage points. So whether we take them into account, I think it's absolutely imperative that we hear that.
Okay, no, I agree. And I'm glad to hear that was already kind of on the list of, I know you guys know a lot of the issues, but if we're identifying and auditing all of the potential concerns, I want to make sure we're hearing from other folks who may have some different perspectives on that. So thank you.
Sorry to interrupt. Anything else, Megan?
I think for questions, that's good. I am really glad to see that there'll be a, evaluation and lens for equity within this, knowing the larger nationwide issues with planning. So I think that's wonderful for the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. It's hard to know what level of specificity and for instance-ness to use in this discussion. For example, you said that we want to hear from folks, what part of this doesn't work? And somebody could say, what doesn't work for me is I can't build 10 stories on Montello. That's not really the kind of question we're interested in, but that is an answer to that question. So figuring out what we are looking for and where those are policy issues and where the other ones are inconsistencies and superseding by state code and modern realities. And it gets kind of complicated. It gets kind of confusing at some level. Right?
I have another question. This may be difficult to answer. We are limited in terms of measure 5 and 50. We can only do so much. We can only provide so many services based on our limited tax base. Fortunately, we have a diversified set of revenue streams here, so we're able to meet some needs more adequately. However, if we are building out the city, assuming we're building out the city based on what currently exists or some such thing with current TSP, is there a calculation or thought regarding how much it takes to service that growth or development or zoning change in terms of sewer pipes, roads, et cetera? And would the tax base theoretically cover all of those indefinite future forever needs that the community will have? I understand some of this has been asked and answered a little bit with the West Side Plan, but once that comes up, I would imagine that the ongoing needs of the community might outstrip that if the growth rates of measure 5 and 50 continue to be what they are, but costs escalate at a higher rate.
Is there a question? Yeah,
the math. The question.
Yeah.
The question is if zoning or what is.
I gathered. I was being flippant. I'm sorry. When it comes to zone changes, there's something called the transportation planning rule, which is one specific aspect. The code does not necessarily in itself trigger a financial analysis or a capital improvements analysis. They're kind of, they coexist. Transportation system plan is one area where we do a high level future forecast analysis when it comes to the projects that are there and some of the sources that are that are attributed and how much they're going to cost and how do we reasonably or expect to pay for them. That's how we set some of our system development charges on new development. It's also some of the calculus that goes into capital improvement planning, which is really the CIPs, which our friends in Public Works dominate. Those are really the big financial forecast estimator spends. So at some point, are you going to rely on tax revenue? I think that expectation has already been set as no. So what becomes the capital stack that we do? Are they rates? You have ratepayers that are responsible for, these systems, either water and sewer. There's a calculus there, and our rates are determined based upon the feasibility to run that system. So when we set rates and you go back, there is that financial analysis. It doesn't really hit with the zoning code, but it is there, and it does complement. They're complementary studies. So I hope that's an answer.
Yeah, it is somewhat. What I'm also sort of getting at is if we set up our financial structures to rely solely on SDCs per unit and whatnot based on downflow, then depending on the unit, as mentioned earlier, that may be cost prohibitive due to the upfront costs. So I would like some of those to be in consideration as you go through the entire process. One other consideration related to that is personal experience. Having gone through the process once, twice before, it takes some time to get some answers back. Streamlining the process to be able to at least get a ballpark answer earlier on would go a long way towards people being able to make decisions regarding building permits and getting stuff done.
Yeah, and as process person, I think that's an important consideration. I think that becomes really tricky when what I've realized and come to notice is the lift and the delta between the time you escape land use and the time you have to get in construction drawings. There's a large gap there, and there's a lot of surprises at that point. A remedy to that would be to raise the bar and to make sure we have more information going into land use so that there's not that big of a delta, so that people have a better idea going into construction what those costs are going to be. However, that changes some of that changes the land use side. To get through the land use part, we need more complete plans, and we may ask people to invest in better plans and more detailed information so that there is not that sticker shock by the time they get to construction. That'll be something in process analysis that we'll come back with, but I think a lot about that every day.
That's more of a phase 2 question.
Yeah, it'll make its way into phase 1. I won't let it go.
That's a point that I hear a lot, is that some people want a different answer than they're going to get. But other people just want a clear, straight answer. Even bad news is fine, but the inconsistency, the delay, the uncertainty, the wiggle, that's difficult. Mark.
Yeah, so I agree with that having a clear view of the whole thing as a client perspective is important. So I think that can always be improved, just continuous improvement. I was going to ask, my sense is they're two unrelated things, but in the housing strategies, we talked about costs being lessened for certain types of housing based on affordability, rungs in the ladder, and maybe made up for in other rungs of the ladder. Is that part of this, or is that a completely separate piece?
Only as far as the regulatory. So if not at phase 1, but in phase 2, if you wanted to shift standards for varying usage and set different standards for different uses, that is where it would be. It wouldn't be shifting an SDC burden or a financial burden. That's a completely separate process.
Standards are different from fees. Yeah.
Yes.
So for example,
Go ahead, Megan. I heard.
I'm sorry, it's very hard when you're on Zoom. jumping in on that, I think it's in our work plan for the next 2 years is that we are looking at a separate SDC study that would include looking at, can you change SDCs to promote types of housing we want and, costs of housing we want. But that would be a separate project from this code audit.
So using middle housing as an example, middle housing set aside a unique process to encourage. It's not equal to other uses in the zone. It has a set aside process that is expedited. It has a height standard unique to its own. It has a lot standard that is different from townhouses or single family detached of unlimited size and variety. Those are unique standards that are not equal. They benefit this use. Reduce parking. You could look at all your uses from condo, multifamily, affordable, all the way through large format ranchette with no neighbors in sight, and set those aside. So long as each of those uses are treated, within their own category the same way, you can change those standards and adopt them. One thing that is listed in here, the comp plan policies are not to be amended. So that's not the intent of this code, is to not rewrite the comprehensive plan by virtue of the zoning code rewriting it. That's not what the intent here is, and that's not really in the spirit of the comp plan. The comp plan still is the policies. We've amended them over time. We are still, the intent is to remain true to that document as the guiding principles and the goals of the city as amended over time. So this zoning code should still harmonize with the comp plan. It is not intended to rewrite it.
Other questions, council? We ready to act?
Barry, the charter is here. We have some items that you've raised. We intend to take this and, if you're comfortable with this is our roadmap to proceed with our next steps in looking for our contractors, doing some scope refinement and proceeding. So long as there's nothing fatal in here and that we're out of touch, by way of assessment, communication in your touch points. But
Do you need action from council today?
there's no vote as long as no one is stopping us, we're going to proceed.
Thanks.
Here, use mine.
Thank you, Dan. I thought just one more question, and I think we're looking for some council guidance is, how do you want to stay informed and involved in this project? As Dustin just said, based on the feedback we received today and the charter that you saw, staff will prepare an RFP, you will see that. And then, of course, you will be responsible for awarding the contract to the selected consultant. But are there other touch points as this project goes through? We anticipate it'll probably take 6 to 9 months to come back to you with a report. Would you like to have a halfway touch point or a work session where you share some of your frustrations and concerns about the code?
Is 6 to 10 months the audit part or the phase 1 and 2?
No, not phase. That's an impossible feat. Especially if we have, at phase 2, we have involvement with stakeholders and, we're bringing other people online and engaging with them. So it's only the first one is 6 to 9 months. I think that the ask would be, after you've assigned a contract with a consultant, is there a touch point before the end? Meaning like a quarter, a halfway point?
Like, wait a minute, nobody asked me, and I think page 26 is terrible. Like, I could see that happening to a counselor.
Yeah.
So, I don't want also to make you be taking baby steps, waiting for us to give you the next green light, red light.
So, for example, we'll use the Urban Renewal Agency's plan for the Heights streetscape. We have a map. We have predestined some of the tasks that are in our consultant work plan that we will come back to you. So I could set up a quarter of those on a schedule so that you knew 3 or 4 times throughout from award to completion that we're here before you. And quarters just comes up because seems like a mathematical.
Thumbs up all over the place. But there will also be multiple night meetings that you could attend as well. I mean, this is a public process and you are,
Good. Thank you, Dan. Good point. We can seek it out as our proclivity varies. Yep.
That was actually kind of where I was going.
Did you want to say proclivity?
No, not proclivity, but thank you for saying it.
Okay, I think we may be done with this topic. Yeah, Grant, something else? Quarterly?
3 months.
Great.
We'll set it up to, from beginning to end, that we see you quarterly.
Great, thank you. That takes us to the storage of vehicles within the public right of way. Chief. And Susan, thanks for hanging in. We'll include your comments now.
Do you want her to go first or would you like me to go?
I want you to go.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, thank you, Council and Mayor. This subject was brought up in 2022, and we're here again today. In June of 2023, on the 26th, we had talked about the 72-hour rule. At that time, we'd given a number of days. At that time, we didn't come to a conclusion where we wanted to stand as a council. Today, we have answered the 4 questions that you brought forward to us. We could go through those real quick, or did you feel the cover sheet covered enough of those? Regards to,
Like the cover sheet, or you want the chief to talk about it, people?
or you want to highlight anything there, such questions?
Let's assume we read the cover sheet. Keep going.
Okay, sounds good. We could quickly go, I could brief those real quick. We were looking just basically areas congested for parking in the city. You were given a map, an example. Another one was similar like size cities. What are they doing? You got another exhibit in there. The other one, can we change the rulings for different vehicles and such, boat trailers, such? We say yes. And then the final was administration costs, which we gave quite an answer through the finance director and the expense of that. So we're here today really to look at for the city and for your guys's moving forward is the limitations. We're looking at how many days you as council would like to see in policy as far as a vehicle or such trailer to be parked in the roadway, stored or parked for extended amount of time. And also distance, we want to consider it's no longer in violation of the ordinance as far as a moving of a distance and what that looks like. We've given examples here, kind of you could look at on the cover sheet, everything from 72 hours to 30 days. And then we've got a kind of a vast different distance to kind of give examples and kind of get your feedback on what you would like to see tonight to move forward on this.
All right, so to be clear, staff recommendation is they want from us limits on time, limits on non-cars and distance.
Correct. And then really, I look at limits on non-cars. That kind of, I believe, rolls into one of the questions, can we place limits on things other than motor vehicles? If that's something you don't want to do, I look at it as encompassing the whole thing as a time and distance. But if you would like to do something different for a boat trailer, motorhome, that was where that would fall into place.
Great, thank you. How about if we ask Susan's testimony now? Is that Sue? Please, thanks Susan for doing the work and for hanging in there with us.
Oh, thank you. Pleasure, no problem. I have prepared paper for you guys. Just because it has pictures. Pictures are always more fun. Sorry? Yes, and I figured they wouldn't have had time to look things over. It's too much to do.
For some, yes, for some, no. It's a good idea.
Yeah. Just that when I was here last time, we talked about the possibility, we totally understand what you're trying to do here and why it's important. You can't live here and not understand. But there was some concern that my suggestion of a residence permit so that people without garages and without parking areas like our house, our garage fell down 30 years ago. And our house is 1907, and there are a number of older houses like that in town. So the idea was, well, is it going to be that complicated to do a residence permit? And so I was in Salem last week, and there was a sign in a nearby neighborhood that basically said, okay, Salem has a residence permit. And so I just thought I'd give you a picture of the sign and also the city website page, which indicates their basic process for applying for a residence permit. For vehicles, apparently they allow up to 4 per household, although I didn't get into the weeds. And also the permit form, which is not complex. And so, and I do seem to recall that in reading on this issue back in June, there was some indication of smaller towns that also had a residence permit process, smaller towns than Salem, which would be more like Hood River. And somehow that seems to have disappeared from what I have in front of me on my iPad. So it just seems like a few calls to smaller towns that do have that kind of residence permit, just to ask, how complicated is this? Is it a big deal? Is it staff intensive? Might give you some answers. Because if you can do this kind of thing, it makes things so much more peaceful for local residents who live here. We're leaving town to go out of the country for 3 weeks soon. You know, Paul has, sorry, my husband has an extra car he uses for search and rescue work, and there's no place to put it on the property. So it's that kind of situation where you just don't have to worry about moving your car 120 times a year. So I thought I'd mention this as an option. Certainly staff has enough work to do, but it might be worth doing in terms of local residents' concerns.
Thanks for your advocacy, Susan. All right. Staff is looking for direction. Who wants to start? Before I'll start. Tim emailed me. He's unable to attend, and I just got it in passing on the phone. I didn't distribute it to everybody. I'm sorry, but the long and short of it was he was really sort of tending towards this may be more hassle than it's worth. There are certain instances where there's a problem and we'd love to fix the problem, but will our solution cause many more headaches for the chief and for us? So he was perhaps landing preliminarily on the, yeah, maybe we shouldn't restrict. So that's Tim's input.
I think we should have some kind of code. Whatever the timeline is, we'd have to decide that, but we should have something on the books. I don't necessarily think that somebody should just be able to leave their vehicle. And from what people around town, from what I've heard is nobody can really nail down a hard timeline on how long they find is acceptable. So that's the question I think we're trying to answer. Most people think 72 hours, from what I've heard, is too short. I tend to agree with that. But I don't think even moving your vehicle somewhere between, or having to move your vehicle between a week to a month, like 12 times a year, is asking too much. I also didn't hear anything really differentiating vehicle from boat or anything else. It's a physical object parked on the street that's taking up street public space. So I wasn't necessarily as interested in differentiating between those two physical pieces of property.
Thanks. So to model good behavior, thank you, Grant. We have vehicle, trailer, boat, whatever, distance, time. Perfect. Good. Thank you, Megan with the hand, Doug with the hand noticing.
Oh, thank you. I think I agree. I mean, I agree with Tim on and I think this was true last month, and I've definitely mulled on it, I really don't want us to get to a point where we need to do a parking permit program, especially in the realm of defining residents, but just the level of, is that in any way a priority I want staff time and resources directed at? No. So, which gets me to, 72 hours, definitely too short. I do kind of think a week's too short. I feel like 30 days, it's like you probably don't need a permit program, because that seems pretty, there'd be very limited number of people that can't meet that for some legitimate reason. So I'd kind of vote either that or longer. I have a lot more sympathy for the motor vehicles itself versus why you would use your boat or trailer, take up space when that probably should just have a different location where you're storing it. I would be open to a shorter time frame on that, because those could just be kept somewhere. I mean, if you're gonna have one of those, you should probably have a location to store it. And I guess someone can tell me if there's some legitimate reason you have a boat but can't store it somewhere. And yeah, distance, I'm flexible. Half mile seems too big. That's, you know, most of town. So maybe 2 blocks or something. Those are my
Thank
thoughts.
you, Megan. Mark and Doug?
I still think this is it's a good idea to give you guys a tool to use. I think it addresses a lot of the stuff we've heard about. I appreciate the research you did that shows what other cities are doing. Personally, I think that every 3 days having to move your car is not a hard thing to do. But I do understand that that gives us a little bit of angst, and so I'm hip to, you know, the week. I think a month is just unnecessarily long. So boats and everything the same as cars. A week is fine. 2 blocks would be acceptable, but 400 feet would be better in my mind. So.
Doug?
Very similar Mark's feedback. I really echo that. It's a tool that needs to be used. I'm not in favor of a residential program at this point. However, after this is enacted, I think it's fine for us to say in 3 months, oh boy, you know, it's becoming overwhelming for the police department, and I think we can take action. So it's hard to say what residents are going to do without having something on the books. So it's kind of one of those things. Mark had said it last time. It's like, well, what if we just tried this? And I know it seems like it could be, you know, what's the right word I'm looking for here? It seems like that's problematic in a few ways, but I guarantee all the cities that are on here would say the same thing. Look, we're not sure what's going to happen if we're going to have citizen, going after citizen and me calling on my neighbor and all that kind of thing, unless we have something on the books. So I think whatever we write in, there should be some report out after a certain amount of time, 3 months, 6 months, whatever it might be, whatever, to understand what has the impact been. Is Marty inundated with, going out to the neighborhoods? I don't think that's the case, but I would freely admit that I was wrong after some data, right? So I think that we should consider that as well. Whatever we do, there should be a review process and see if anything needs to be adjusted sooner than later.
Thank you. I heard somebody say it very well, was there's a difference between parking and storage. And we're fortunate that we have, in almost every case, ample space for us all to park our cars. But storing a car or a boat that's a different thing. Storing, I moved out of town for 6 months and I made a plan for my cars to not be sitting in front of my house. Like, I got a buddy in Odell, I could move it out 6 months. I'd be actually a little bit inclined to go a little bit longer than a week. If I was king, I would say 2 blocks, 1 month. That feels about right to me, but I'm open to discussion. It sounds like we're not too far away. Grant.
Just one thing to add regarding timelines. Whatever we decide is only the start of the clock. Because if somebody gets a report, then somebody would have to go out and take the vehicle for an additional doubling of that time.
Exactly. But my buddy on 3rd Street, who's had a van in front of his house for 19 months, like, hey, a month sounds pretty good.
A month is 2 months.
Yeah.
A month is 2 months.
A month would be 2, 2 weeks would be 1 week would be 2 weeks. In terms of the actual enforcement mechanism.
So I'd say, let's try something. Somebody want to propose a number and see if we can get to 4 on it? We got 5 of us online. Dan.
I hesitate to say you're overanalyzing this, but I can see everyone who's, and Susan Crowley too, you're thinking like, okay, how do I comply with this each and every day? And that's not what the purpose is. Right now, we don't even have anything on the books that would authorize Marty or one of the other police officers to knock and start the conversation about, hey, what's the plan? This ban has been here for a long time. And so in Susan's example, I would anticipate that you know, if one of her neighbors called it in, then the police would show up and they would talk to Susan or Paul, and they would realize what the situation was. And that it wasn't really a situation of storage on the street, but it wouldn't, that's not the problem that this is designed to address. This is just so that the police have a on the books legal reason for talking to someone about the situation and figuring out, you know, what is the problem and what's the remedy. So I would anticipate that Paul would never have to move his truck, because unless he's got crossways with his neighbors, and I would always advise the police to not become a tool for neighborhood spite battles, which I don't think they need that advice. But so far, I've never heard that it's a problem in any other code enforcement aspect in the city. But so I would anticipate, like, if you're going to go out of town for 6 months, you should deal with your car, because if you come back and it's not there, you're not going to be happy about that, but your neighbor will be unhappy too. So that situation for sure. But this code is not designed to, you know, to cause any of you to move your vehicles. You know, they can be there for even longer than 72 hours because that's what people are allowed to do. It's if it's called in and the police look into it and they figure out that it is a problem, then they start the process and they start the conversation, and eventually it gets this thing moved. You've got fans that parked there for 3 years because we have no way of starting the conversation. So, you know.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate it. Great.
Can I,
Oh, Megan.
sorry, just in response to Dan's thing, I get he's trying to make us feel better, and I think it made me feel worse because that just feels like a weird tool to like identify or target who we or the police or whoever at the time decides is the undesirable element we want to harass or move out of town. And it's fine to say, oh, if you haven't done anything wrong, you're fine. But like that just feels like a bad way to be planning for the future of this community.
The subjectivity is giving you concern, I'm hearing.
Yes.
Thank you, Megan.
I think it just opens us up for some weird discretionary decisions that could, I trust everyone now, but it just, yeah.
Oh, Megan, if I'd known it was your car, I wouldn't have. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
great.
kind of like it. Yeah.
No, I understand. I'm not totally joking. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Great. It sounds like this question is kind of revolving around spirit of law versus letter of the law. Have you, from your research and looking at other cities' ordinances, have they had a problem with the letter of the law itself being enforced strictly and it being used as a vengeful tool among neighbors? Or
Not really. And I have experience with this 72-hour program. And I guess what I hoped I had said more clearly is that, you know, if Paul's neighbor calls it in, the police would talk and the problem would be solved. It wouldn't be that he gets a free pass, that the vehicle would be moved, or somehow you talk to the neighbor. That's how it'd be resolved, short of towing the vehicle, is the point. But I have experience in my personal experience in my neighborhood in Portland. 72-hour seems to be the ubiquitous number. And in Portland, it takes a long time to get a response. It was a situation where people went to Europe for the winter and left their car parked in front of my house. It was, you know, a Paul Blackburn problem. And, you know, the police never would do anything. You know, I got no redress just because the bureaucratic difficulty of the police doing something that's really not criminal, dealing with the criminal situation. But I have seen it work. They'll come and they'll put the sticker on the vehicle that it'll be there for like another couple of weeks. And it's one of those, like, this vehicle, like, where is the owner? And so it's after that, and I see the plants growing out from under it, that the owner is not around. And so that's the situation. So it's not to clear out undesirables. It's, you know, your neighbors have moved away and left this thing.
yeah, I would expect
Yeah.
any law to apply to everyone. across the city.
The unequal enforcement is a big deal for in Ninth Circuit case law for dealing with, for example, sleeping in your car. The unequal enforcement is a big deal. And I'm not suggesting that, if you're a city councilor, you get to park your vehicle for 6 months while you're in Baja. That's not what I'm suggesting at all. Is that they know your phone number. They'll call you, say, you just really can't do this. Find a friend in Odell.
I think we're going to agree on a number.
I'm still fine with a week to notice.
And distance.
At least 2 blocks. Because blocks vary in severity and size. We might
On the table is 1 week, 2 blocks. I got 1 thumb. I got 1 grant as a thumb. We got 4. Megan, you want to make 5 for 1 week, 2 blocks?
No, but you don't need me.
We want you.
We might.
Sorry.
What would get you on board, my friend?
I could do 30.
30 days. So 4 weeks, 2 blocks is good for you.
Yep.
We just want to be really clear with what we mean by block distance.
I think the chief knows how to figure that out. Is that a problem, chief?
Talking planning, nice thing about it is the downtown core, the city blocks are smaller than a residential core. So 2 blocks will be basically where the vehicles parked, would basically, you're in that area, and 2 blocks would be downtown core is 200 feet. Outside the residential is anywhere between 400 to 600 feet.
I think the
New
chief
code
likes
said
2
you can't
blocks.
go any farther than 800 feet.
I think the chief likes 2 blocks.
So we'd want to set a foot length of that measurement.
That's not what I'm hearing the chief say.
If they said that they recognize that it's a function of labor, not just distance. So blocks are okay.
I would hate to use feet just because I don't want to be out there with their measuring tape. That would be the technical part of it. I would rather say 2 blocks based on that location. If an officer goes out there, it's parked at 4th and Prospect, we know 2 blocks is 2nd Street or 6th Street, right?
And as the guy who lives at 4th and Prospect, I'd be happy with that. That's like, great. That's somebody else's problem.
Is a block an adequate legal measurement for code?
Where it would come up is if someone wanted to push it, their car, the police went through the process, no response. Can't find the owner, can't get a response. It ends up getting towed. And then there's a contest about was it lawfully tagged because, they would have to have moved it something and say, I moved it 2 blocks, 2 blocks measured from some other place. I don't really see that coming up. I think if the police are comfortable, like I say, these conversations haven't been happening because we haven't had a legal basis for doing it. And so I would hope that just getting something on the books would authorize the police to do a knock and talk. And it would alleviate some of the complaints that we've been hearing about the neighborhoods and, people who go to Baja for the winter.
Yeah, I just want to make sure it was terminology, definitionally correct.
I wouldn't want to take it to the Court of Appeals, but we will dismiss the prosecution before it comes to that. It's you talk about people who you just want to get a call back. You want to find them. Which is a problem in a lot of these cases.
And this can be adjusted later if required.
Yeah.
So I do feel like I was trying to draw in Megan. I think we got 4 people at 1 week, 2 blocks. Just let's declare victory. Do we need a vote? I think Grant made a motion.
Ordinance before the
Writing of an ordinance, this is a suggestion.
okay.
Right.
This will result in an ordinance. We already have a draft and it'll be brought to you next time with these numbers that you decide on. So I'd say go ahead and vote on something.
Move we direct staff to prepare draft amendments to Title 9 or not Title 9, Title 8. This is not university. Title 8 and Title 10 prohibiting parking on the public right of way or on public property for a period in excess of 168 hours without moving to a location at least 2 blocks away for a motor vehicle or RV, boat, campers or other personal property.
Moved by Paulson.
Can I make an addition
You can request of the move.
of the mover? Yeah, okay, well, yeah, I further move. Yeah, well, more or less, what I requested about the review, I'm wondering if we can include that in the language.
At this point, Robert's rules would suggest either there's a second or there's no second. If there's no second, you can, motion dies, then you can open the conversation.
So we're waiting for a second. Motion dies for lack of a second.
Start over.
New motion.
I apologize, Grant. I would just say that to demonstrate that we've got our eye on the ball here, that we would just direct staff to have some sort of review process, come back to us after a certain amount of time.
Make that motion, please.
So, yeah, what page is the motion on, Grant?
119.
119. Okay, I move that we direct staff to prepare draft amendments to Title 8 and Title 10 prohibiting parking on public right of way or on public property for a period in excess of 1 week without moving a location to a location at least 2 blocks away from motor vehicles, with a period of 90 days of review after the passing of the ordinance to report to council on the impact of the ordinance.
That includes RVs, boats.
Includes the away for recreational vehicles, boats, campers, and other personal property.
So moved.
Second.
Second by Paulson. Further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
I'm listening for you, Megan. Opposed?
No.
Saunders votes no online. Chair votes aye, motion passes. Thanks, Chief. Thanks, Susan. Thanks, Ted. Moves on to city recorder. Jen, do you have anything for us? City manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Earlier today, I had planned to ask you about having someone attend the county administrator interviews, but I have since learned that they are going back out for recruitment. So feel for our colleagues in the county, and we'll keep you updated as their recruitment continues. My one other piece, and Mayor might be able to speak more about this, is the Oregon Mayor Association Conference is in town. It will be here in Hood River, August 10th and 11th, when I think Thursday and Friday next week. Sorry, 2 weeks from now. And I will actually be reaching out to you in some ways that council might be able to assist. So we're really looking forward to showing off Hood River to all of the mayors of our state.
And there will be some fun urban renewal tours. Come on.
That's right. We'll be showing off urban renewal.
And some banjo time.
I am very much
Almost
looking forward to banjo time.
I think Abigail hasn't had any banjo time yet.
I have not yet had the honor, but I have heard many things.
Okay. Anything else, Abigail?
No, I think that's it for us.
Committee reports, Megan.
I haven't been to anything.
Doug.
None for me.
Mark.
None for me.
Grant.
Yeah, I got stuff. I think you guys all received invites. A bunch of people did.
Mitchell Point.
Yeah, to the Mitchell Point 2.0 tunnel unveiling. Region 1 invited a bunch of people. A bunch of people are going. More people than I expected, which is nice. That's going to be on August 7th. And then following that one, there's going to be a Region 1 meeting here in Hood River.
When is that meeting, Grant?
It's following
Like
looking at Mitchell
hours
Point.
late- Hours later,
No, right after. Like 6 o'clock.
6 PM, same day on the.
Yeah, same day on the 7th, about half hour after we get back from Mitchell Point. Which reminds me, Abigail, I need a hard hat and a high vis vest. If,
They're gonna have that stuff.
yeah. No, they actually won't. Too many people. So many people are going.
Oh, wow, okay.
They've asked us to bring our own.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
BYO hard hat.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Uh,
RSVP'd already as well.
Yep, so there's that. There's gonna be presentations from the historic bike route. Historic highway group, which leads me to another question that I asked of the mayor. Is if we, the city of Hood River, could sign a just thumbs up resolution in support of the historic highway bike route. They have asked the same thing from the county of Hood River, and I believe they're getting that. Yeah, so.
So I suggested Grant bring this up just at this moment, and
Mhm.
if you guys give me the approval, I'll sign the equivalent version of what the county's doing. It's not gonna be like a legally problematic thing or something.
Yeah, it's just a thumbs up. We like this resolution.
Everybody good with that? I will do that.
Can we, in the realm of we haven't actually loved it and don't want people really on Cascade, is this the time to bring that up, or is that really putting something bad in the
I
pool?
don't think so.
No, short answer is no. We can have the Cascade conversation at a different meeting. Generally, this is more of a general support.
I agree with that, Megan. It seems like the moment at this point is, shall we sign a fairly generic support letter, or shall we not do that because we're worried about the Cascade detail? What's your preference, Megan?
I mean, I'm gonna trust that Grant says this is the time to just be vaguely supportive. Great. I do want to, make sure we don't drop the ball long term, but I'm cool with vaguely supportive now.
And may I ask a follow-up question? Is this a resolution that would be adopted by council or a letter of support that would just be signed by the mayor?
Letter of support can just be signed by the mayor.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Does that give you any heartburn, Abigail?
No, not at all. I was just wondering if it needed to come to a future council meeting.
No, it does not need to come to a future council meeting.
Was things in 2 weeks before a meeting. So.
Yeah, just a thing that, hey, do we like this? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Yeah, so there'll be a presentation on that. There'll be a presentation regarding county projects, as well as a presentation on the bridge authority, going over bridge authority structure and authority powers, all kinds of bridge related stuff. So if you would like to learn more about future bridge, you can tune in.
What else?
That's it for committees.
This seems like as good a time as any to bring up the lift grant. Did that get shared on July 10th, Abigail?
Yes, but it's always worth sharing again.
So this is like a huge thing, right? For the housing authority and for our project. And Ray, I was on the phone with Senator's office and the governor's office, like, we got the state money partly because we got the federal money. Like, this is not the final yarn in the sweater, but come on, this is a huge thing. So hooray, hooray. And a testament to, I'm sorry, Dustin's gone, his staff's work and our development partners' work and political work, and good job. And the United Way, which is city-ish thing, we gave away $104,000 this afternoon to the nonprofits in town that are doing that great work. And Mark's wife was there. And I mean, just the volunteer fabric of this community is a huge part of what this community is, and not always like fully, like completely in agreement with everything, but look at the amazing engagement we had today, and great job staff having Jaime. I appreciate that. And we had a lot of testimony about a lot of important issues. And I think the testifiers hearing the other testifiers is a really valuable thing as well. So that was not pain-free, but kind of a great moment for the community, I thought also. All right, mayor comments. I don't have anything else. Council comments, Grant.
I went to the Parks Board meeting last week, Wednesday. They have 3 new board people out of the 5. Nan's the president this year. They are going to do some more research on opinions and interests on park related things. About an hour and 5 into their meeting, they talked about additional potential taxes they might introduce. They'd like to come to the city at some point in September, October, sometime around then, and talk about stuff. Nothing specific, but they wanted to come chat with us. That was it from the Parks Board.
Thank you. Mark?
Yeah, I thought that the public discussion today was pretty fascinating, and it brought up some questions. So first question is, it seems like the gap between accepting ODOT's planters and not getting anything is too big. It's not a reasonable gap. So I was wondering, is that someplace where you on your thing can say, how do we have a design charrette that takes into account our historic town and has use been building cross ramps? It seems like a perfectly logical thing that you'd want to do instead of a state agency hires a consultant to do it without talking to anyone in the town that they're going to do it to. So
I will attempt to advocate for ODOT to be more flexible.
and just even the conversation, right? I mean, I think that that's the piece that's missing, because what's being asked isn't unreasonable or counter to what they want to do. It's just that we're not talking. So, okay, thank you very much. That's great.
I'm not in favor of the accurate, and I appreciate your comment, Dan, that the building is historic, the landscaping is not. But come on, the landscaping's cool. We don't want like standard Gresham ODOT
For
stuff
sure.
next to the cute building. That's-
For sure. I hesitate to say that ODOT has blown us off in trying to engage them. But I think they've kind of blown us off, and there is this buffer, they're right-of-way consultant, and we don't know if the communication is getting through. And I think you putting the brakes on tonight, hopefully will get ODOT's attention that, this is easily solved with a little communication, that it would be terrible to rip out the landscaping and the Alaskan cedar and the bench. I'm not sure it has to be. Why don't we talk about it? Because those are the construction easements that they go to the private property owners to negotiate with. And so that's what the right-of-way agent is doing. That's why they talk to each one of them, and they don't provide all of them, all the plans for everything. It's just they go to each one because they need to acquire a temporary construction easement from that one for this part. And they've designed the size and shape. They're all different. So someone has looked at this, but like, we can't get any response from someone at ODOT. And I hope that this will bring that about.
And we agreed, staff told us we'll hear more in 3 weeks.
I am super hopeful now that you guys have said.
Two voicemails today from two different people,
Yep.
so I feel hopeful.
Yeah. Yeah. But you're totally right.
Thank you.
The LID discussion, I'm curious about the status. Maybe that's our council meeting. I do trust staff is moving forward on it, and it's just sort of a shame, but next time we chat. For the trailer park discussion, my only question is, are we connecting those folks with the people that actually can address some of, because it's not, I don't think it's the city.
I know that the housing authority has been in touch with that situation.
Yeah. As has McCack.
And maybe it's like, here's an attorney that handles this kind of stuff, or I don't know. It doesn't feel like it's us, but certainly I feel supportive of what they're trying to do. And I'm gonna try to find out. I'm sure there's policy related stuff to this situation that I'm just not smart about yet.
Abigail, before I left, there was whispers of a project. Is there a project?
A project for preservation of this particular trailer park?
Yeah.
No.
Okay,
I mean,
thank you.
no, not at the city level. There are discussions. I mean, there are many agencies that are concerned about this property.
Great, thank you.
And then I was intrigued by the lighting on Wasco question, and I don't know if someone came up to me on the street, I would not know the process which they could follow to improve lighting.
Like, hey, we want a street light kind of?
Yeah.
I would tell Abigail.
Right. And I could check in with Public Works. I do think most lights are probably owned by Pacific Power. So that I'm seeing a nod. So I think it's maybe coordinating with them. We can check in. We can follow up tomorrow with more detail.
I don't know what I would say to her. if
Right.
she asked me that. I think that was everything I had.
Oh, I was just going to talk respond, Mark. I think no lights were put in down there because it's a park. And people didn't want lights next to the park.
I was on Parks Board when we built skate park and lighting was a big deal. But that was not, am I safe on the sidewalk? It was, woohoo, I want to make noise and shred.
Where's Hope Avenue, which is the address of the woman in question?
I think if you go down the hill from 20th and then there's that loop that goes to the north.
Okay, thank you, Chief. I got it. The question was, where's Hope? And the chief knew where it was. It's down below the skate park. It's a city involved low-income housing project. Thanks. Doug.
In general or just
Council comment.
Okay. I am very sympathetic to what everybody said about Oak Street. And I'll echo what Mark and other counselors have said. I think it's important to make sure that ODOT sees the full picture and look forward to hearing back about that. Also, in regards to the mobile home park, fully support them coming to provide feedback. Fantastic that we had an interpreter today as well. I think that empowers more people to come, and I think we're all on the same page that we want to tune that process the right way, so that everybody feels empowered to make comment. Also echoing other comments about, though the city may not have a role, whatever we can do to advocate for that community, I'm fully in favor of. And if there is something the city can do, we should be doing it as well. I will say that neighborhood where I ride my bike that way sometimes, it is pretty dark, noticeably dark.
Where are you imagining, Doug?
So yeah, right where you were saying before,
Wasco between
Wasco,
Morris?
up the hill as well, going up the hill
To-
on
to
20th.
Subway.
Yeah, to Subway. It's just, I
Great.
agree. It is dark over
Thank
there. And yeah, I've had a lot of discussions in the last few weeks regarding ride shares. I think some others of us as well have had discussions, and just to be able to provide ample direction to staff. And I've talked about this with Abigail as well. I think it's time to, and not that these conversations haven't been happening, but make sure that we direct some more focus towards getting feedback from the taxis, from those operators, from CAT. Specifically, we're trying to make sure that people can get rides home at night. So I'd like to know how the taxis, CAT would address that without ride shares or some other type of program, or if they have any programs that they could pitch to us that would get to the crux of that problem. I think that's valuable feedback at this point.
I got email, the mayor got email from Patty Fink, former White Salmon City Councilor, former director of CAT. She's quite interested in this topic. I haven't followed up with her yet because I just didn't get to it, and Abigail and I haven't met yet, but she wants to engage in that conversation. I've done some, coffee shop chatter about it, and people see both sides of the issue and feel bad for the locals and miss the adequate capacity of Uber.
We talked about understanding the code barriers to existing rideshare programs. Is that coming back to council at some point where we have this discussion, or
Yeah,
how do we?
When we discussed it last time, we talked about specifically about public engagement, and I think we identified taxi cabs, CAT, some service providers, Visit Hood River, and Downtown Hood River, Downtown Business Association as kind of the 5 groups to check in on. And so we've started that. I had a conversation with Amy Schlappe from CAT. She actually asked to bring this topic to their board and that they probably would submit some formal comments. Unfortunately, they probably can't schedule it on their board meeting until September, so it would be a little while. But and the others, Katie and I we have some scheduling difficulties, so we've not been able to connect, but she's aware. I believe others are aware. We just haven't had the chance to reach out yet.
And just, I think it just should be said that we value that feedback. We'd like it as soon as we can. We're definitely hearing from the community members. This has become more of a hot topic, and I think all of us are probably hearing from constituents about this, and let's get some comments and then definitely value their feedback and want to hear from them. That's it for me. Thank you.
Anything else before the executive sessions? Mark? Oh, thank you. Megan?
Thanks. I joined Abigail to talk about West Side Urban Renewal at the county meeting and at the library board. County was more just answering questions. They will be doing their, actual review and approval hopefully in August. But I think we've covered most of the questions they've brought forward at this point. So thank you to Abigail and staff. And Elaine Howard. Did mention Arthur brought up, outside of urban renewal, but the annexation conversation again from their end, and they are interested in having a conversation with us. So I'm passing that on, not to talk about tonight, but something to think about for the future. And then briefly, the library board is definitely very concerned about the loss of revenue from their end. So I'm passing that on as well. I think they'll send a comment.
Anything else?
Just forgot to mention, I also attended the CAT board, which Abigail was not able to make, so it's on solo on that. Can expect a letter from them. There will be some questions regarding how projects align to the TSP or where they came from, et cetera. But was able to more or less answer their questions at the board meeting, and look forward to the letter and for hearing us out.
Great. Next is executive session. I'm going to call a 5-minute break, and then we'll do that.
Okay, let me just, okay, so we've got Chris, Haley, Leonard, and Neil. Let me process.